Hey, what's going on, toy fam of the YouTube links? Project Piper Custom here, and we're back with another, kind of smallish episode of the Custom Cave. Kind of see it as more of an extension to the previous video I did on Venom, the Custom versus Official. So you can consider this an accessory to the action figure that was that video, and I'll drop a link in the description if you want to go check it out. But basically, yeah, in that video, I compared my original Custom Venom to the Marvel Legends Hasbro official release. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. But in that video, I did say that I was going to take the official release and give it a repaint, and as you can see, that is exactly what I did. I did zip, and here it is before you. Okay, so yeah, so let's get into it. Also, I don't know if any of you did check out, but if you are new to the channel, I actually did a live stream of the Custom Cave of me doing live painting of this guy. I'll drop a link to that video as well. But yes, so we are here. Custom repaint is finished. And yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Right, let me bring in the hands and bring him forward. Right, let's have a look, shall we? Oh, that's bright. Okay, so as you can see here, simple thing I did really. All I did was repainted the veins, repainted both heads. Okay, that's pretty much all it needed to do, because if you didn't see the video, in that video I did say that I wasn't really happy with the official paint job. You know, it was just like stamped on sloppily for mass production, and of course with that it incurred quite a few QC issues, especially with my one. And yeah, you know, I've seen on a few reviews as well that, you know, that some of the veins were just like all over the gaff. There was bits and pieces missing. Some of where the eyes were just been stamped in the wrong place, so you could see where it was out of alignment. And some of the teeth just really weren't great. You know, looked like one of mine had a tooth missing. Okay, so just little things like that I just wanted to touch up, but I knew the sculpt was there. I just didn't realise how much of the sculpt was there until I got into it. And this thing is unbelievably well sculpted. You know, just needs that little bit extra TLC with the paint job, and that is something you can do if you're interested in doing it. I'm going to show you how. Well, tell you how as I break down my one. Okay, so first thing I did really was basically just to give this whole thing a black wash. Okay, as you know, the veins on the original figure were very predominant, very thick, very in your face with the paint, and so I just gave the whole thing, all the veiny areas on the chest and in the arms and on the back, I gave the whole thing a black wash just to dull them down. You know, just to dull them down, not completely, you know, get rid of them, so they give a faint outline of where they were, because obviously that's going to act as a marker for when we come to the repaint as well. Because as this thing is really glossy, it is hard to try and pick up in the light where the original sculpt is. All right, but yeah, so once I'd done that, I then went in with a very light dry brush. Okay, and I'm going to show you the paints that I used. Okay, so basically, yeah, I wanted to just see how much detail there was in the sculpt. So obviously, after having the veins all black washed and dulled down, I really just thought, you know what, no, I'm gonna see exactly just how much is there. So I just went in with a light dry brush all over the where the veins would be. As you can see, it's a little bit heavier here. And get out of the light, there you go. But what it did do is it picked up all this awesome detail. Okay, as you can see, there's some really nice detail, and also some of the really faint little veins. Okay, that are just, you know, crisscrossing in between the big large ones. And for me and my you know, just OCD with detail, and I love testing myself, I am going to try and highlight some of them as light as possible. But if you guys just want to, if you want to try this yourself and just want to, you know, give the main thick veins just a once over, get them a bit neater, then basically what I did, as you can see here, I've gotten to a point where I'm happy to move along. Okay, so I've just, this is sort of one that I've been working on to see if I can get it right. And yeah, so dry brushing aside, if you're just aiming for the bigger veins, what I suggest is basically I'm using this, which is a Citadel base, yeah, Corax white, which is kind of like an off-white. It's a little bit greyish in there. And so yeah, I went in with a light dry brush, just on the actual, basically mimicking the entire pattern of the vein. Okay, not too heavy a dry brush. But yeah, basically enough to cover, to give it a base layer, to give the vein itself a base layer, as you can see here, and it's not going to be too too bright. Okay, so just give it a base layer. So even if you have to go in a couple of times just to get complete coverage of the vein. And then of course, as I'm getting to the tips where the veins are sort of dissipating back into the body, I'm just sort of just lifting the brush slightly and bringing it to you know, just to a point, just so the pattern itself, the paint, just sort of blends back in. Okay, and you can go back in with some black black gloss, a little bit of a dry brush, and then of course blend in where it's going to dissipate back into the body. And then once that's dry, I then go in with a heavier layer. Okay, so I get a little bit more on my paintbrush with a little bit of water. Okay, and I'm using, where's my paintbrush gone? Where is it gone? Okay, and I'm using just the tip of that. Okay, just the tip of that, and I'm going and applying a heavier layer just on the predominant areas. So of course over this main sort of portion, all right, and of course where it tapers off here and just down, and I'm just bringing it to, you know, just taking it in slightly where it spurs off. Okay, and then that sort of highlights the vein, and it also gives it that sort of blending effect. As I've dry brushed, I've gone in with the black gloss again, just very lightly in between those tiny little vein areas, just so that they stand out and highlight slightly. Just a bit of subtle detail in there, that more veins are starting to wanting to pop. As in the movie, you could see when there was a close-up, there was loads of little tiny veins that are just barely visible creeping around, and I wanted to try and highlight that. But if you don't want to do that and just want to focus on the main vein repaint, then you can do that. Okay, yeah, okay. So that's what I wanted. So basically, once I'd seen all of those, I brought it back with some of this, and I just went in, as you can see them better there, and I started just cutting back on the dry brushing and filling in the chest area again, and just leaving very faint trails leading to the main veins that I wanted to keep, you know, big and predominant. All right, yeah. So, and that's what left me with these little snaky ones. All right, and it's very subtle detail. That's all it is. So when they're picked up in the right light, you'll see them. And of course, you can cut them back with some extra washes with this. Okay, and yeah. So obviously, I had to do here, and here. And then of course follow it down on the back, and it was the back that we were working on during the live stream. All right, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Okay, so once I'd got those areas down, okay, I moved on to the shoulders, and as you can see, I didn't want these as like thick or as bright and in your face as I did these. These four on the body are the predominant ones that I wanted shown. So with these, they were only very visible sort of just here, and then I had them fade off quite early on before they dissipated out. Same with these two, and then of course just nothing too thick and predominant on the forearms and the hands. Okay, because I didn't want to distract away from the main ones. Okay, once I'd done all that, I then went in with a second black wash, not as thick this time, just a bit thinner. Okay, all over again, and make sure it got into all the striations of the muscular body. And basically, yeah, that dulled everything back down just slightly, and then applied it a little bit heavier on the bottoms of the big veins. You know, where they were starting to dissipate back into the body, I applied it a lot thicker and heavier there. So as you can see there, it sort of just drifts off. Okay, and then I went in once more with the Corax white, and just highlighted the thicker areas of the body so they stood out and were brighter. Okay, and then once I'd done that, I just applied some, well, I used this, and I said it on a live stream, this stuff was extremely weird. I thought this was a white paint. I was very wrong, which is an auxiliary. And effectively what this is basically just a gloss, like a Mod Podge gloss in a different kind of bottle, because it works exactly the same way. Okay, so I just used some of this and a bit of a paintbrush, and I just went over each of the veins and the veiny areas, and that's what gave them that wet, organic, wet look. Okay, that's why the sheen just sort of rolls off of them. All right, and just makes it look all wet and slimy. Okay, and then lastly, all I did was just take some of this neat, a little bit watered down, a little bit, just tiny bit, and then I just went in all the muscle striations, so the in between these areas were the glossy, and it made the rest of the body and the muscular structure sort of pop and stand out. As you can see for the back, so I went in all the muscular crevices and down the center. Okay, and then sealed it all up with some actual Mod Podge. All right. Moving on to the head sculpts, and these were kind of like my biggest things that I wanted to tackle, because I knew the sculpt was there. I just really wanted to make it pop and bring it out. As you know, on my one from a previous video, on this particular head, there was an issue with my teeth where it looked like one of the teeth that actually was missing as part of the sculpt, and I think that was one of the rarer QC issues, because I've seen quite a few reviews and not everyone had the same. So I don't expect everyone to have that issue that I did. So with that, I needed to actually just resculpt in one of the teeth, okay, which was one of these front ones here. So I'm not expecting everyone to need to do that. I just had to do it on mine as one of the first things to do to get out, to get out of the way before I went in with the paint job. Now with the paint job, as you can tell from the teeth of the original, and I'll pop up pictures, the sculpt is there, but the slap of one coat colour paint just made it all look cartoonish, as if you just had one sort of tooth. It really didn't help define each individual tooth that was in the set. Which you knew was there, you could tell it was there. So yeah, that was one of the first things I wanted to do. So once I got the sculpt work out of the way, okay, I went in with just a little bit of this, and this is what I used to repaint the gum. All right, which is the classic dark scarlet, where you may have seen a few times in my videos that I use. I love this colour, it's like a blood red. All right, so I just went over the gums just with this, and the inner corners, just lightly. Okay, just give it a little bit of a base, and then the first thing to do was to really get all those teeth out in the open, and that was to give it a wash. Okay, because I wanted that sort of the rotting decay sort of look, where it looks like gingivitis going on his teeth. Okay, so the first thing I did was to give it a wash using this, which is another Citadel, and it's the layer Balor brown. Okay, and it's got this like yellowy brown colour. All right, so I just gave it a generous wash all throughout and all over. Just let it seep in between those teeth, and I did it for both. Okay, did it for both there, as you can see. All right. So once both sets were stained, if you will, and then it was time to actually highlight each individual tooth, and with that I use this, which is a brand called Vallejo, Vallejo or Vallejo. Okay, and this is an ivory colour, so I'll get you a good look at that so you can pick up a bottle for yourself, and a lot of airbrushes use this. Okay, but yeah, so this is a Vallejo, and it's great for teeth, gives it that off-white colour, and it's great for eyes as well. But I didn't need to do that with these, and we'll get into the eyes in a minute. Okay, so once the brown had dried on my wash, it was then to take a very, very thin paintbrush and then just individually go in for the teeth. Okay, so the wash itself had brought out where each tooth was. Okay, and then, which was great because you knew the sculpt was there, so it gave you a sort of marker of where to go. More so on the top row than the bottom row. Where the bottom row is a little bit more guesswork, but it was doable. And with that, I wanted to keep that sort of gingivitis look, so I only went in at the very sort of tip and just slightly up the body of each tooth, so the tops of the teeth still had that brown, and it gave you that gingivitis kind of look. And I just went in with a little stroke and just highlighting each individual tooth. Okay, just starting just at the tip of the base, and then just a little bit up the body of each tooth, and we're slowly working my way around. Okay, picking them all out all the way across there, and then a little bit more guesswork at the bottom set, but something that gives it a bit of a uniform pattern, that there's a bottom set of teeth down there. And then of course, well, where the wash had sort of covered it up, I then went back in with the Scarlet and just re-highlighted those gums. All right, and then that really brought out the teeth, and of course it all seeps in there, and it gives it that more realistic sort of nasty teeth. And then of course I went back in again once I'd done that with some of this to give it that wet glossy look. Okay, and that's what gives them that shine and all that saliva-ish look. And I did that for both. Bring him in. All right, I did go over the tongue with a dry brush. I just mixed a little bit of this and a little bit of this together and gave it more of a pink, and I went in and dry brushed the texture of the tongue so you could really pick out that detail, because the tongue was a bit more blood red than I was liking. I didn't want it like pinky, really pink like a human tongue. I just wanted something of a happy medium. So I went in and gave the tongue a bit of a dry brush first, but then I did the exact same technique on the open mouth with the teeth, and really brought them out, as you can see there. Okay, and now with that, all the teeth, as you can see, are defined, and you can see they're separated. Okay, moving on to the eyes, and this is an area where I really wanted to sort of make the detail pop and give it that sort of realistic movie feel. And what I wanted to do, because in the movies you can see the eyes themselves aren't just plain white, they have a bit of like, you know, just light symbiote sort of wash going in from the all around the eye till it gets to like that white center all around, as if it's sort of fluidy and liquidy. And you know, the eyes are sort of just conforming around the head as if he controls the entire thing, which he does. So yeah, that's the kind of look I wanted to go for, and I achieved that by basically just giving the eyes a black wash. So all it was, and I did it for both. So we'll look at this one because this is the first one I did. All right. So basically, yeah, with the eyes, after I painted in where the detail had missed on the stamp, like just on the edge and the rim, and getting the shape right, once I'd gone in with just the black gloss again and done that, I gave just a full wash on each eye with the black wash. Okay, and just as it was starting to dry, not fully cure, but starting to dry, I then went in with a wet paintbrush and I just worked the center of the eye. So I sort of just washed away some of the black staining from the original wash, just washed away, and brought it down, and then sort of left it stained a little bit as it goes around the hook, but mainly just the center of the eye. So just washed it away back to the white, but left the edges still. This one's a better one, there you go. Just sort of left the wash in the edges of the eye, and then to just give it a bit more of an organic look rather than just a straight line from where you washed it, I then used a rubber tool, which is one of my sculpting tools. This rubber tip one right here. Okay, and just because it's got the rubber tip itself, what I was doing, that's the wrong head. Okay, so what I did was I just used this tip and I went in and I just sort of rubbed just little streaks in, so it just looked a bit more, you know, messy and streaky, and I could neaten up any areas that were being stubborn. Okay, and just rub them away, so it gave you that nice smooth white finish. And then just around the edges, just cutting it back a little bit, so it made it a bit more streaky, and I did that with both. You can see here, just went in like that, just cut it back a bit, so it gave you that sort of more organic flow. This one's more heavier than the other one. Okay, and then yeah, once I'd done that, I then applied some more of this lovely stuff all over the eye to give it that nice soft sheeny gloss look. As you can see, just a little wet and organic, lights bouncing off it all over the place. Okay, because the last thing you want is the eyes to be matte color. That's just no good. All right, and then after doing that one, I went straight in and did this one. Okay, took a bit more time with this one, but yeah, sort of applied the same technique, not as heavy around the edges of the eyes because I wanted it to be more softer. This one was more of an aggressive face, so I wanted it to look a bit meaner. Okay, so this one's got more heavier wash around the eyes, whereas this one's a little bit softer, but the details are still there. And same thing again, applied this goop to give it that nice sheen. All right, and that's it. That's how I did the eyes, boys and girls. The simple wash, brushing it back with a wet paintbrush, going in with a little bit of extra cleanup with my rubber tip sculpting tool, and then sealing it with, you can actively use gloss Mod Podge, which is effectively what this is, afterwards. And that there gives you that organic wet look. Okay, pretty simple and easy to do if you wanted to give it a go yourself. And there you have it. You know, it doesn't need much, and you can bring out all the details that are originally there and take your figure to the next level and elevate your display that little bit more. So yeah, let me know in the comments whether you are intending on giving this a go yourself, or whether you're happy with the factory paint as is. But yeah, do let me know, and if you want me to elaborate on anything more or go over anything a bit better, then do hit me up in the comments of the video, or if you hit me up on my social medias. Links will be in the description. It's at Project Piper Customs on Facebook and on Instagram, and yeah, I'll answer them as soon as I can. No problems at all with going into more depth detail with the you know, the techniques. I just didn't want to make this video ridiculously long. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you do give this a go yourself. Hope this has inspired you to give it a go yourself, as there's not much needed. I'll list all the paints in the description too, if you want to grab them. They're mainly off Amazon or eBay. Pick your poison, or if you can find them in your local craft store, providing you can get out to a local craft store that is still open, then yeah, grab them, because they're quite cheap and they're nice to have in your arsenal of supplies. So there we are, guys. Thanks very much again for watching and tuning in. I hope you enjoyed some of the shots at the end. Sadly, there will be no music, no official music over them, because I only included a fair use amount in my last one, and they still claimed it, and now apparently you can go to prison. So I ain't risking that anymore. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoy them at the end, and yeah, that's it. Have a good weekend, and until next